Don't make me laugh. A black woman strolling in with a check like this? Officer Grant slammed Maya Whitfield's shoulders into the polished bank floor, his grip tightening until her breath stuttered. Dwyer wrenched her wrist higher, leaning in with a cold sneer. Flash a big number. Hope we're too stupid to question it. You people always push your luck. Grant snatched the fallen check, ripping it clean in half, the pieces fluttering against the tile near her cheek. Next time you pretend you've got money, at least try not to look like you wandered in from the wrong neighborhood. Maya stayed still, gaze unwavering. Neither officer had any idea whose authority they were crushing under their boots. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The morning sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Maya Whitfield jogged the final stretch toward Riverbend Community Bank. Her new running route had given her a good sense of the town she'd soon be leading as police captain. Sweat glistened on her forehead as she pulled open the heavy glass door, her workout clothes still damp from the 5-mile run. Inside her zip pocket, she carried her hiring bonus check and official documentation, items she'd planned to deposit before heading home to shower and change. The bank's interior was cool and quiet, with just a few early customers scattered among the waiting areas. Maya approached the counter, where a young teller with a nameplate reading Jessica greeted her with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning," Maya said, unzipping her pocket. "I'd like to deposit this check, please." She slid the city-issued check and her ID across the counter. Jessica picked up the check with 2 fingers as if it might bite her. Her eyes darted between the amount and Maya's casual appearance. "This is quite a large sum," she said, her voice pitched higher than before. "Yes, it's my hiring bonus. I have the supporting documentation right here." Maya pulled out the official letterhead papers, but Jessica had already turned away, whispering to her manager. The manager, a balding man in an ill-fitting suit, studied Maya from across the room while speaking in hushed tones into a phone. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She'd seen that look before, that mixture of suspicion and predetermined judgment. Less than 5 minutes later, the bank's door burst open. 2 officers stormed in, their hands already resting on their weapons. The taller one, Officer Grant, immediately pointed at Maya. "Step away from the counter. Hands where we can see them." The few customers in the bank pressed themselves against the walls, their faces a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. Maya slowly raised her hands, keeping her voice steady. "Officers, there's been a misunderstanding. If you'll let me explain—" "Shut it!" Officer Dwyer cut her off, grabbing her arm roughly. "We've got reports of attempted check fraud. You really thought you could walk in here with a fake check for that amount?" "The check is legitimate," Maya said firmly. "I'm the new police captain. If you just verify—" Grant laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the now silent bank. "Right. And I'm the Queen of England." He yanked her other arm behind her back, causing Maya to wince. "You look nothing like a police captain." The cold metal of handcuffs bit into her wrists as they clicked shut. Maya kept her head high, even as shame and anger burned in her chest. Customers pulled out their phones, recording the scene as the officers paraded her toward the door. "This is a mistake," Maya said, her voice carrying across the lobby. "Call the mayor's office. Check my credentials." Yeah, Dwyer sneered, shoving her forward. "Everyone's innocent, right? Everyone's got connections." He pushed her harder than necessary, making her stumble on the bank's steps. They forced her into the back of their patrol car, the seat cold against her running clothes. Through the window, Maya could see the bank manager watching with his arms crossed, looking satisfied. Jessica the teller had already turned away, returning to her counter as if nothing had happened. The drive to the station was filled with muttered comments from the front seat. "These people," Grant said, just loud enough for Maya to hear, "always trying to pull something." At the station, they roughly guided her through the side entrance, past other officers who barely glanced up from their desks. The booking area was dingy, with fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead, and walls that hadn't seen fresh paint in years. "Let's get those prints," Dwyer said, grabbing her hand and pressing it against the fingerprint scanner with unnecessary force. The booking clerk, a thin man with round glasses, typed Maya's information into the system. His fingers moved lazily across the keyboard until suddenly they froze. The color drained from his face as he stared at his screen. "Officers," he said, his voice cracking. "You need to see this." Grant leaned over the clerk's shoulder, his smug expression melting away as he read the screen. Maya stood straight, despite her hands still being cuffed behind her back. The clerk swiveled his monitor, displaying Maya's credentials, rank, and official appointment letter. The same documents she'd tried to show them at the bank now filled the screen, along with her impressive service record from her previous department. "I tried to tell you," Maya said quietly, each word precise and measured. "Now, would someone like to remove these handcuffs from your new captain?" The silence in the booking area was deafening. Other officers had begun to gather, whispers spreading through the station like wildfire. Grant and Dwyer stood frozen, their earlier bravado evaporating in the harsh fluorescent light. Maya waited, her wrists still bound, as the weight of their catastrophic mistake settled over the room. The ticking of a wall clock counted out each excruciating second of their realization. She could see their careers flashing before their eyes, their minds frantically searching for a way to explain this away. "I want your supervisor," Maya said into the silence. "Now." The booking clerk's hands trembled as he pointed at the screen. "Ma'am, Captain Whitfield, I'm so sorry. Your credentials are all here. Your appointment letter, your service record, everything." Maya kept her posture straight, despite the handcuffs still digging into her wrists. "Officers Grant and Dwyer, let me detail what just happened here. You responded to a call without proper verification of the complaint. You failed to check identification when presented. You escalated a non-violent situation with immediate physical force. You ignored direct attempts to explain the situation. You used excessive force during arrest. You made discriminatory comments during transport." She paused, letting each violation hang in the air. "And you did all this to your incoming commanding officer." Grant's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Dwyer stared at his boots, suddenly fascinated by the scuffed leather. Neither spoke. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hallway as interim Captain Ross burst into the booking area, his shirt already showing sweat stains under the arms. His eyes darted between Maya, the officers, and the damning information displayed on the computer screen. "Captain Whitfield," Ross said, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. "There's been an unfortunate misunderstanding. If we could just—" "Remove these handcuffs," Maya ordered, her voice cutting through his attempt at damage control. "Immediately." Ross nodded quickly to Dwyer, who fumbled with the keys before finally freeing her. Maya rubbed her wrists, noting the red marks left behind. "This was clearly a miscommunication," Ross continued, spreading his hands in what he probably thought was a placating gesture. "The bank called about suspicious activity, and our officers responded with perhaps a bit too much enthusiasm." "Enthusiasm?" Maya's eyebrow rose. "Is that what we're calling racial profiling and excessive force now?" "That's not what—" Grant started to protest, but Ross silenced him with a sharp look. "I want this processed properly," Maya said. "Full incident reports from both officers. I want the bank's original call pulled and transcribed. I want the body cam footage preserved, and I want signed statements from every officer who witnessed this arrest." Ross's smile faltered. "Captain, surely we can handle this internally. There's no need to—" "I've already called the mayor," the booking clerk interrupted, then shrank back when Ross glared at him. Within minutes, Mayor Thompson hurried through the door, his tie askew and his face flushed from rushing over. He took in the scene with visible dismay. "Captain Whitfield," he said, straightening his tie, "I cannot begin to express how deeply sorry I am for this incident. Please, let's discuss this in private. We need to handle this delicately to maintain community trust." Maya noticed how he said community trust rather than your trust. Still, she followed him to a nearby office, aware of the eyes following her movement through the station. The mayor closed the door and sank into a chair. "I understand you're upset. You have every right to be. But I'm asking you, please consider how filing formal complaints might affect department morale. These officers made a mistake, yes, but—" "A mistake?" Maya leaned forward. "Mayor Thompson, they targeted me because of how I look. They physically assaulted me. They ignored proper procedure. And based on their behavior, I suspect this isn't the first time. Let's focus on moving forward," the mayor suggested, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. "You're starting your position next week. Fresh start, clean slate. We can use this as a learning opportunity without formal disciplinary action." Maya studied him for a long moment. Perhaps he was right. Maybe the shock of this incident would be enough to drive change. The officers' faces, when they realized their mistake, had certainly suggested they'd learned something. "I'll consider it," she said finally. "But I want those incident reports on my desk first thing Monday morning. And I want it clear to everyone that this type of behavior ends now." The mayor nodded eagerly. Of course. Now, let me have someone bring in your hiring materials. We can get everything processed properly this time." A junior officer soon arrived with Maya's papers, check, and ID, handling them like they might explode. The mayor excused himself, presumably to begin damage control with the local press. As Maya gathered her belongings, she noticed her hands were steady. The anger was still there, but it had crystallized into something harder, more focused. This wasn't just about one incident anymore. This was about the culture that made it possible. She signed the necessary forms and collected her official department ID, aware of the whispers that followed her through the hallways. Officers quickly found reasons to be elsewhere when she passed, averting their eyes or suddenly discovering urgent paperwork. At the station's front entrance, Maya paused to check her phone. Through the reflection in the glass doors, she caught Interim Captain Ross watching her from the end of the hallway. His earlier attempts at smoothing things over had vanished, replaced by an expression of undisguised hostility. His hands were clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. Maya straightened her shoulders and pushed through the doors into the afternoon sunlight. She had a lot of work ahead of her, starting with the box of incident reports she'd demanded. Someone had tried to break her today, but all they'd done was show her exactly what needed to change. Maya's heels clicked against the polished floor of City Hall as she made her way to the Human Resources Department. The morning's events at the bank and police station still burned in her mind, but she kept her expression neutral, professional, composed. Mrs. Davidson, the HR director, greeted her with an overly bright smile. "Captain Whitfield, the mayor asked me to expedite your paperwork personally." She gestured to a chair. "Please, have a seat." Maya settled into the chair, noting how Mrs. Davidson's hands fluttered nervously as she arranged forms across the desk. Word traveled fast in small towns. "Just a few signatures needed," Mrs. Davidson said, sliding documents forward. "Insurance forms, pension enrollment, department policies." The door opened, and Mayor Thompson stepped in, holding a manila folder. "Ah, Captain Whitfield. Good to see you again." He placed the folder on the desk. "I took the liberty of pulling the service records you requested for Officers Grant and Dwyer." Maya opened the folder, scanning the contents. Her eyes narrowed. According to these records, both officers had pristine careers. No complaints, no disciplinary actions, not even a single note of verbal counseling. "This can't be right," Maya said, flipping through the pages again. These officers demonstrated clear behavioral issues during my arrest. That kind of conduct doesn't develop overnight. The mayor shifted his weight. I assure you, these are their complete files. Really? Maya held up Grant's record. Officer Grant has worked here 8 years without a single civilian complaint. No use of force reviews. No supervisory documentation of any kind. Our department maintains high standards, the mayor said stiffly. Maya pulled out her phone, pulling up a video she'd recorded during the transport to the station. Grant's voice filled the room. Should have known better than to try passing off that check. People like you always think you can get away with it. The mayor's face reddened. That's unfortunate language, certainly. But one incident, this level of overt bias and aggression indicates a pattern. Maya cut in. Either your department has completely failed to document misconduct, or these records have been sanitized. Mrs. Davidson suddenly became very interested in reorganizing her desk drawers. Captain Whitfield, the mayor said, his tone growing sharp, I understand you're upset about this morning's misunderstanding, but throwing around accusations of records tampering is serious. So is assaulting an innocent person under color of authority, Maya replied evenly. I want access to the complete record system, digital and physical files. That will take time to arrange. Monday morning. First thing. The mayor's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. I'll have IT set up your permissions. He turned and left, closing the door with slightly more force than necessary. Maya spent the next hour completing paperwork, her mind churning over the spotless service records. She'd seen enough personnel files in her career to know when something had been scrubbed clean. As she gathered her things to leave, Mrs. Davidson touched her arm. Captain, good luck. You'll need it. Maya walked through the building's maze of corridors, her footsteps echoing in the late afternoon quiet. As she rounded a corner near the dispatch center, someone called out in a harsh whisper, Captain Whitfield! A young woman in a dispatcher's uniform stood halfway out of a supply closet, glancing nervously down the hall. Her name tag read, Reed. Can I help you? Maya asked. Reed beckoned her closer, then pressed a manila envelope into her hands. You need to hear this, she whispered. But please, don't let anyone know it came from me. They'll know it was dispatch, but they can't prove which one of us. Before Maya could respond, Reed disappeared back into the supply closet. Maya slipped the envelope into her bag and continued walking, maintaining her measured pace until she reached her car in the parking garage. Once inside, she opened the envelope with steady hands. It contained a small digital recorder and a handwritten note. This morning's radio traffic, 9:15, 9:45 a.m. Maya pressed play. Static crackled, then cleared. Unit 217. Respond to Riverbend Community Bank for a fraud complaint. The dispatcher's voice was professional, routine. Copy that, came Grant's reply. Any description of the suspect? A different voice cut in on the channel. One Maya recognized as Interim Captain Ross. Grant, Dwyer, hold for secure channel. There was a pause, then the audio shifted. The quality was poorer, but the words were clear enough. Listen up, Ross said. The woman at the bank? That's the one they're bringing in to replace me. Some hotshot from the city who thinks she's going to change how we do things. The black woman? Grant's voice held a smirk. Yeah, time to show her how things work around here. Make an example. Make her understand she's not in charge. Copy that, sir. We'll handle it. And boys? Make it stick. But keep it clean enough that the recording cut off. Maya sat in silence, her hands gripping the steering wheel. The morning's events replayed in her mind, but now through a different lens. The bank manager's phone call, the officer's immediate aggression, the way they'd ignored her explanation. It hadn't been a mistake. It hadn't been overzealous officers jumping to conclusions. It had been orchestrated, calculated, meant to humiliate her and put her in her place before she could even start her job. Maya pressed play again, listening to the damning exchange a second time. The casual confidence in their voices suggested this wasn't the first time they'd used their badges to target someone, just the first time they'd targeted the wrong person. She stared through the windshield at the brick walls of City Hall, thinking about the sanitized personnel files upstairs and the smug faces at the station. They'd tried to break her spirit this morning. Instead, they'd handed her the first piece of evidence she needed to break their entire corrupt system. Maya pulled into the driveway of her rental house, a modest two-bedroom craftsman on a quiet street lined with maple trees. The porch light cast a weak glow across the weathered welcome mat. She hadn't had time to make this place feel like home yet. Her furniture wouldn't arrive until next week. Inside, the empty rooms echoed with her footsteps. She dropped her bag on the kitchen counter, the recorder inside feeling like a weight of responsibility. The events of the day pressed down on her shoulders as she mechanically filled a glass with water from the sink. The kitchen's bare walls seemed to close in. Maya slumped into the lone folding chair she'd bought at the hardware store, her professional composure finally cracking. Her hands trembled slightly as she took a sip of water. "What am I doing here?" she whispered to the empty room. The smart move would be to resign before officially starting. Find another department, one without such deeply rooted problems. She could cite the bank incident as her reason for withdrawing. No one would blame her. Maya pulled out the recorder again, turning it over in her hands. The plastic was warm from being in her bag all afternoon. She pressed play one more time, letting Ross's smug voice fill the kitchen. Time to show her how things work around here. Make an example. Her jaw tightened. That's exactly why she needed to stay. How many others had they made examples of? How many citizens had faced the same treatment she'd experienced, but without her resources and authority to fight back? Maya stood up, energy returning to her tired muscles. She unpacked her laptop from her bag and set it up on the kitchen counter. The screen's glow cut through the growing darkness as she began typing. Department Directive, 2023-01, effective immediately. She worked steadily for the next 2 hours, detailing specific requirements and timelines. Every procedure would be documented. Every complaint would be investigated. Every officer would be held accountable, regardless of rank or tenure. At 9:45 p.m., Maya opened her email and composed a message to Mayor Thompson. Dear Mayor Thompson, I am writing to formally confirm my acceptance of the position of police captain, effective Monday morning. I look forward to working with the department to ensure we provide professional, equitable service to all members of our community. Please have IT ready with my system access first thing Monday, as discussed. Respectfully, Captain Maya Whitfield. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The empty house felt colder now, and she realized she hadn't eaten since morning. Maya was heating up a microwave dinner when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was brief. Turn around and go back where you came from. Maya's police instincts kicked in. She took a screenshot of the message and the number, then copied both to a secure cloud folder. Next, she walked through the house, methodically checking that all windows were locked and curtains drawn. The security system she'd insisted on having installed before moving in showed all zones secure. Back in the kitchen, she forced herself to eat a few bites of the rubbery pasta. The threatening text was meant to rattle her, just like the arrest. They wanted her scared, off balance, unsure of herself. But they'd miscalculated. Threats only strengthened her resolve. Maya pulled a legal pad from her bag and began making notes. Potential allies in the department, community leaders to contact, state-level resources she could call on. She'd need to build a network quickly, find the officers who were tired of the corruption but had been afraid to speak up. The dispatcher who'd given her the recording was a start. There would be others. There always were in departments like this. Good people who felt trapped in a broken system, waiting for someone to lead the way out. Around midnight, exhaustion finally caught up with her. Maya dragged her air mattress into the master bedroom, wondering if she should have taken the mayor's offer of temporary housing at the downtown extended stay hotel. No, better to have her own space, even if it was sparse right now. She double-checked the locks one more time, then changed into sleep clothes and settled onto the air mattress. The plastic squeaked as she shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. Through the bedroom window, she could see the street lamp's orange glow filtering through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the ceiling. Maya's hand found her phone in the darkness. She pulled up the threatening text again, studying it. The sender had been careful to use a burner number, but the timing was telling. Someone in the department had access to her personal contact information already. Her mind drifted to tomorrow. The station would be hostile territory. Officers would close ranks around Grant and Dwyer, following Ross's lead. They'd test her authority, ignore her directives, try to freeze her out of her own department. The air mattress let out a soft hiss as Maya turned onto her side. She set 3 alarms, not trusting herself to sleep soundly in the unfamiliar space. Her body felt heavy with fatigue, but her mind kept spinning, replaying the day's events, planning her next moves. The heating system clicked on, startling her. The warm air stirring the blinds made shadows dance across the walls. Maya pulled the blanket tighter, fighting the urge to get up and check the locks again. She was safe here. She had to believe that. Sleep came slowly, in fits and starts. Each car passing on the street drew her attention. Every creak of the house settling made her eyes snap open. But beneath the uncertainty and physical tension, a core of determination remained solid and unshaken. She would not be driven away. She would not back down. Maya pulled into the police station parking lot at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes before her official start time. Her freshly pressed captain's uniform felt both familiar and strange, a symbol of authority in a place where that authority was already being challenged. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the nearly empty lot. Only a few patrol cars were parked in their designated spots, their windows reflecting the orange glow of dawn. Maya took a deep breath, adjusted her badge, and grabbed her briefcase from the passenger seat. The station's front desk was staffed by a young officer who suddenly became intensely focused on his computer screen when she walked in. Maya swiped her new ID card at the security door, the lock clicking open with a mechanical finality. Inside, the fluorescent-lit hallway felt colder than necessary. Officers moving between the locker room and break area deliberately shifted their paths to avoid passing close to her. Their conversations died as she approached, resuming in whispers once she passed. Maya kept her stride purposeful, her expression neutral. She'd expected this. The silent treatment was a classic intimidation tactic. The message was clear. You're not one of us. You'll never be one of us. Her office door was already open. Inside, a stack of pending reports waited on her desk, along with a sticky note listing the morning briefing time. The interim captain's attempt at maintaining normalcy, as if yesterday had never happened. Maya was reviewing the shift schedules when heavy footsteps approached. Officers Grant and Dwyer passed her open door, speaking just loud enough to be heard. "Weather's nice today," Grant said with exaggerated cheerfulness. "Perfect for a trip to the bank." Dwyer's answering laugh echoed down the hallway. Maya kept her eyes on her paperwork, noting how their boots squeaked on the freshly waxed floor as they lingered near her doorway. After a few moments, they moved on, their smirks almost audible in their retreating footsteps. At 8 a.m. sharp, Maya entered the briefing room. The chatter immediately died. 20 pairs of eyes studied their notebooks or the wall behind her, anywhere but directly at their new captain. "Good morning," Maya said, her voice clear and steady. "I know we had an unusual introduction yesterday. Today we start fresh. I've reviewed the pending cases and shift assignments. We'll start with those, then discuss some new departmental procedures." The silence that greeted her was thick enough to cut. In the back row, Officer Grant made a show of checking his phone. Officer Dwyer slouched in his chair, arms crossed, radiating defiance. Maya proceeded with the briefing, assigning patrol sectors and following up on ongoing investigations. Each time she called on an officer, the responses were minimal. "Yes, Captain." "No, Captain." "Understood, Captain." Each word dripping with barely concealed resentment. When she outlined new reporting requirements for traffic stops and searches, the room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Several officers exchanged knowing looks. One whispered something that made his seatmate suppress a smile. "These changes take effect immediately," Maya concluded. "Any questions?" The silence stretched. Finally, a senior officer in the front row spoke up. "Will these new procedures be applied retroactively, Captain?" His emphasis on her title carried a hint of mockery. "No, Officer Peterson. We start fresh from today." Maya held his gaze until he looked away. Dismissed. Throughout the morning, Maya observed the subtle ways her authority was being undermined. Routine reports that should have taken minutes stretched into hours. Radio responses to her requests came with suspicious delays. The dispatch log showed patrol cars taking circuitous routes to simple calls. In her office, Maya pulled up personnel files on her computer. The gaps were even more obvious now that she had full access. Citizen complaints that had been mentioned in news reports were missing entirely. Use of force incidents had incomplete documentation. Timeline stamps jumped irregularly, suggesting deleted entries. "Captain?" The interim captain, Ross, appeared in her doorway. "Is there a problem with the filing system?" Maya turned her screen slightly. "I'm reviewing our digital records. I've noticed some inconsistencies in the timestamps. I'd like IT to pull all backups for the past 5 years." Ross's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's quite an undertaking. Our IT resources are limited." "I'm aware. Please have them start with the most recent year and work backwards. Priority on personnel files and citizen complaints." "I'll pass that along." Ross lingered for a moment, as if wanting to say more, then retreated. Within an hour, 3 different department heads found reasons to explain why accessing old backups would be difficult, time-consuming, or potentially disruptive to current systems. Each excuse was more elaborate than the last. Maya documented every conversation, every delay, every suspicious gap in the records. The pattern was clear. This wasn't just about her. The department had been systematically erasing its tracks for years. At 6 p.m., Maya gathered her things to leave. The day shift was ending, officers filing out without acknowledging her presence. Through her office window, she watched them cluster in the parking lot, conversations becoming animated once they thought they were out of earshot. The station felt different now than it had that morning. The hostile silence and subtle defiance had revealed something deeper, a well-practiced system of protection and denial. These officers weren't just resenting her authority. They were defending their carefully constructed walls of secrecy. Maya locked her office and walked through the quiet hallway. The evening shift officers were arriving, their expressions carefully blank as she passed. She could feel their eyes on her back, measuring her resolve, waiting for her to break. The security door clicked shut behind her with a heavy finality. In the parking lot, conversation stopped as she approached her car. She kept her movements deliberate, unhurried, refusing to show any sign that their psychological warfare was having an effect. Maya's computer chimed repeatedly as she entered her office the next morning. Her inbox counter showed 37 new messages, all marked urgent. She set her coffee down and began scrolling through them. Unable to process audit request due to system maintenance. Personnel files temporarily unavailable during software upgrade. Access restricted pending IT security review. Each response more creative than the last, in finding reasons why her requests couldn't be fulfilled. The IT department claimed a critical server failure. Records management cited staffing shortages. Even the evidence room supervisor insisted a recent flood had damaged their filing system. Maya leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking softly. Through her office window, she could see Officer Grant laughing with two other officers in the hallway. His eyes flickered toward her office, his smile never reaching them. She opened the department's internal dispatch system, navigating to the citizen complaint database. The interface was clunky, clearly designed to discourage casual browsing. But Maya had seen similar systems before. She knew where to look. The patterns emerged quickly. Complaints filed against certain officers were marked resolved within minutes, sometimes seconds. No investigation notes, no follow-up interviews, just closed, no action needed, stamped across digital forms before the ink could dry. One complaint caught her eye. A black business owner reported $5,000 missing after officers executed a search warrant. The complaint was closed 43 seconds after submission. The responding officers? Grant and Dwyer. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. A woman stood in her doorway, mid-50s, African-American, wearing a community center t-shirt and carrying a worn leather briefcase. "Captain Whitfield? I'm Lena Higgins. I run the East Side Community Center." Maya gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please, come in. Close the door." Lena sat down, her movements careful, measured. She studied Maya's face before speaking. "Word spreads fast in our community. We heard about what happened at the bank." "I'm sure you did," Maya replied, noting how Lena's shoulders remained tense, her handbag clutched close. "That's why I'm here. What happened to you? It happens all the time. But most people can't fight back. They've learned it's safer to stay quiet." Maya leaned forward. "How many incidents go unreported?" "Most of them." Lena opened her briefcase, pulling out a thick folder. "I've been keeping records. Names, dates, details people tell me, but are too scared to tell police. Missing money during searches. Property confiscated that never makes it into evidence. Selective enforcement, depending on the neighborhood." The folder landed on Maya's desk with a soft thud. Inside were handwritten accounts, cell phone photos, dates, and locations. A parallel record of police activity that never made it into official channels. "May I?" Maya asked, reaching for the folder. Lena nodded. As Maya read, Lena's voice grew quieter. "There's a pattern to where these things happen. Certain officers always seem to be involved. Certain neighborhoods get targeted. People learn which streets to avoid, which officers to fear." Maya pulled up the patrol assignment maps on her computer. "Could you point out where most of these incidents occurred?" Lena moved around the desk, studying the screen. Her finger traced several streets. "Here, this section especially. The East Side Corridor, down by the old factory district." Maya overlaid Grant and Dwyer's usual patrol routes. They aligned perfectly with Lena's indicators. Tight circles around areas with the highest number of property seizures and civilian complaints. "When did this pattern start?" Maya asked, making notes. "It got worse about 3 years ago, right after the old captain retired. That's when they started getting bolder." Lena's voice hardened. "They thought nobody was watching. Nobody who could do anything about it anyway." Maya pulled up property seizure records, cross-referencing them with patrol logs. Certain addresses appeared repeatedly. Businesses searched multiple times, cash seized but never properly logged, evidence marked as destroyed, without documentation. Mrs. Higgins, Maya said carefully, would any of these people be willing to come forward now? File official statements? Lena shook her head. Not yet. They need to know it's safe. Need to see something change first. She paused, studying Maya. They need to know you'll still be here. Maya understood the unspoken message. The community had seen would-be reformers come and go before. Change required survival. For the next few hours, Maya methodically compiled the data. She created spreadsheets tracking patrol patterns, complaint dismissals, and property seizures. She mapped overlapping jurisdictions and recurring addresses. The picture became clearer with each entry, a systematic operation hiding behind badges and paperwork. Grant and Dwyer's names appeared with suspicious frequency, always partnered together, always in the same neighborhoods. Their shifts aligned with spikes in complaint dismissals. Their patrol routes created perfect blind spots in surveillance coverage. As evening approached, Maya connected an encrypted external drive to her computer. She had learned early in her career, never keep all your evidence in one place. She transferred copies of everything: patrol logs, complaint records, property seizure documents, Lena's unofficial reports. Each file was another piece of the puzzle, another thread in the web. The station had grown quiet, most day shift officers gone. Through her window, Maya could see Grant watching her office from the break room, his posture too casual to be natural. She kept her movements purposeful as she secured the drive in her briefcase. The evidence was clear now. This wasn't just about resisting her authority. It was about protecting a lucrative system of harassment and theft, a system that had operated unchecked for years, targeting those least able to fight back. Maya locked her office door, the weight of the briefcase heavy with more than just files. In the parking lot, a patrol car idled longer than necessary, its headlights washing over her vehicle. She maintained her steady pace, refusing to show concern. Inside her car, she placed the drive in a hidden compartment under the seat, designed for officers transporting sensitive materials. Maya stood at the front of the briefing room the next morning, her usual stack of assignments ready. But as she began reviewing the day's patrol schedule, her words slowed. The assignments on the board didn't match her approved plan. "Officer Martinez," she called out, "you're listed for the South District. I had you assigned to East Side today." Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "Sergeant Willis adjusted the schedule last night, Captain. Said it came from above." Maya's jaw tightened. Willis had no authority to change her assignments. She scanned the room, noting Grant and Dwyer seated in their usual back corner, looking far too pleased. "The schedule stands as I originally wrote it," she announced firmly. "Any changes need my direct approval." Several officers exchanged glances. Grant leaned over to whisper something to Dwyer, both smirking. When Maya handed out the day's special assignment sheets, 3 officers claimed they never received their copies. "I placed them in your boxes personally," Maya stated. Officer Peterson shrugged. "Must have gotten lost. Happens sometimes." "Then I'll print new ones right now." Maya moved to the computer, but the printer displayed an error message. The paper tray was empty, though she'd filled it earlier. By mid-morning, the pattern was clear. Reports she'd requested arrived with key sections missing. Witness statements were suddenly misfiled. Even basic equipment requisition forms disappeared between her desk and administration. The community forum that afternoon only confirmed her suspicions. Maya stood at the podium in City Hall, facing rows of residents and uniformed officers. She'd organized the meeting to address concerns about police response times in minority neighborhoods. A man in pressed khakis rose during the question period. His posture was too rigid, his words too rehearsed. "Captain Whitfield, isn't it true that your so-called reforms are just an attempt to handicap our officers? To make them afraid to do their jobs?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the back, several officers nodded pointedly. "That's not accurate," Maya replied evenly. "My goal is to ensure equal protection for all citizens." "Sounds anti-police to me," the man interrupted. "We need officers who can act decisively, not worry about political correctness." More nods from the uniformed section. Maya recognized the tactic. Plant a hostile questioner, build momentum against her, make her look defensive. She'd seen it before in her previous department. "I appreciate your concern," she said, keeping her voice calm but firm. "But true police work means serving everyone fairly. That's not political, it's professional." The man tried to argue further, but Maya smoothly moved to the next question. She wouldn't let them bait her into losing composure. Still, she noticed how the narrative was being shaped. The new captain was against her own officers, creating problems where none existed. Throughout the afternoon, Maya maintained her professional demeanor while watching the subtle signs of resistance. Officers taking slightly too long to respond to calls. Reports filed with just enough errors to require revision. Small acts of defiance, carefully calibrated to seem innocent if examined individually. The parking lot was nearly empty when Maya finally left the station that evening. A white envelope sat under her windshield wiper, unmarked except for her name in blocked letters. She scanned the area before retrieving it, noting the security camera's blind spot. Whoever left this knew the station's layout well. Inside her car, Maya examined the contents. Photocopied police reports, property seizure forms, internal memos, all connected to Grant and Dwyer's activities over the past year, all showing clear discrepancies between official records and actual events. A handwritten note accompanied the documents. Some of us remember what the badge means. Maya drove home using an irregular route, checking her mirrors for tails. The documents represented a significant risk for whoever copied them. Their delivery to her windshield sent two messages. First, that she had allies inside the department, and second, that those allies needed to remain hidden. In her home office, Maya spread the new evidence across her desk. The falsified reports showed a pattern. Legitimate seizures documented at half their actual value, with no record of where the remaining property went. Witness statements subtly altered to justify excessive force. Complaint forms marked "resolved," without investigation. She began mapping connections on a large corkboard using different colored strings to track relationships. Red for direct involvement in suspicious incidents, blue for officers who enabled cover-ups, yellow for witnesses who might be convinced to come forward. Grant and Dwyer's names anchored the center, with threads spreading outward to other officers, locations, and incidents. The interim captain's name appeared with increasing frequency in supervisory roles. Each connection represented another crack in the facade of legitimate police work. Maya worked late into the night, adding the new documents to her secured evidence file. She photographed each page before storing the originals in a hidden wall safe, a paranoid precaution that felt increasingly justified. The corkboard gradually revealed the structure of corruption, not just individual bad actors, but a system designed to protect itself. Names and dates blurred together as she cross-referenced incidents. Property seized from a local business matched deposits in an officer's private account. Civilian complaints disappeared after visits from specific patrol units. Maya's trained eye recognized the patterns of organized misconduct, carefully obscured behind bureaucratic paperwork. A car door slammed somewhere outside. Maya instinctively moved away from the window before checking the street. Just a neighbor arriving home late. But her reaction confirmed what she already knew. She was in a fight that would only get more dangerous as she got closer to the truth. Maya sat across from retired Officer James Cooper in a quiet diner 20 miles outside of Riverbend. His weathered face and hesitant manner spoke of someone carrying a heavy burden. They'd chosen this location carefully, far from prying eyes and listening ears. "I appreciate you meeting me," Maya said, stirring her untouched coffee. "Tell me about your time in Riverbend." Cooper glanced around the nearly empty restaurant. 23 years on the force. Retired 5 years ago. Not by choice." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They pushed me out when I wouldn't play along." "Play along with what?" "There's a group within the department. They call themselves the Fellowship. Started small, just a few officers helping each other dodge complaints. But it grew." Cooper's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water. "Now they run everything. Property seizures, selective enforcement, evidence tampering. They decide who gets arrested and who walks free." Maya thought of the documents left on her windshield. "Tell me about Grant and Dwyer. They're soldiers, do the dirty work, but they're not the brains." Cooper wiped his forehead with a napkin. "The interim captain, he's one of the key players. They have connections with local businesses, judges, even some folks at City Hall. It's like a small-town mafia wearing badges. How do they operate? They target specific neighborhoods, mostly Black and Hispanic areas. They'll find reasons to stop businesses, search homes, seize property. Half the seizures never make it to official records. They pressure business owners for protection money disguised as community donations." Cooper's voice hardened. "Anyone who complains gets targeted for harassment until they leave town." Maya pulled out her notebook. "When did you first notice this?" "About 8 years ago. They started small, fixing tickets for friends, looking the other way on minor violations. Then they realized they could make money. Real money." Cooper lowered his voice further. "They've got a system. They'll target a business owner, usually someone who can't fight back. Plant evidence, write bogus citations, make life impossible until the owner sells at a loss. Then one of their friends buys the property. And no one stopped them?" Cooper laughed bitterly. "Who's going to? They control the internal affairs process. Any complaint gets buried. Officers who won't play along get harassed until they transfer or quit. They've got people in records who can alter files, delete evidence." Maya thought of the mysteriously clean personnel records. "Is that why there's no disciplinary history for certain officers? They scrub everything. Make the bad cops look like saints, and the good cops look incompetent." Cooper met her eyes. "That's why they wanted you arrested. Show everyone right away that they're still in charge, that even a police captain isn't untouchable." "Who ordered my arrest?" "I can't prove it. But word is, the interim captain himself made the call. They knew you were coming. Someone in HR tipped them off. They planned to humiliate you, make you quit before you could start digging." Maya wrote rapidly, connecting pieces. "The bank teller? Probably on their payroll. They've got people everywhere, small towns. Everyone's connected. Everyone owes favors." Cooper glanced at his watch nervously. "They watch the Black-owned businesses especially close. Any excuse for a citation, a search, a seizure. They know most folks can't afford to fight back legally." "How many officers are involved?" "Active participants? Maybe 15. But there's another 20 who look the other way, do what they're told. The rest are too scared to speak up." Cooper pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Here's names, dates, incidents I documented before leaving. I kept copies, hoping someday someone would actually investigate." Maya accepted the envelope carefully. "Why are you helping me?" Cooper's eyes watered slightly. "My grandson. He's 12. Black kid in Riverbend. I watch him grow up knowing these are the people supposed to protect him." He shook his head. "I couldn't stop them while I was inside. Maybe you can. The risk to you? I'm dying anyway. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less." Cooper managed a thin smile. "They can't hurt me anymore. But you? They'll come at you hard when this breaks open." Maya reviewed her notes. The scope was staggering. systematic corruption disguised as small-town policing, property theft masked as legal seizures, racial targeting hidden behind selective enforcement, a network of intimidation and profit touching every level of local government. One more question, Maya said. How do they maintain control? There must be evidence somewhere. They keep 2 sets of records. The official ones, clean as snow. Then there's the real documentation. Proof of payments, original complaint forms, unedited body cam footage. They store it all as insurance against each other. No one can turn without everyone going down. Maya sat back, mentally cataloging everything she'd learned. With Cooper's documentation added to her existing evidence, she had enough to approach state authorities. The pattern was clear. Coordinated corruption presented as normal police work, protected by a web of threats and favors. "Thank you," she said finally. "This helps confirm what I've found." Cooper stood slowly, joints creaking. "Be careful who you trust. Even at the state level, they might have connections. Once you move on this—" "I know," Maya said. "No going back." She watched the retired officer leave, then spent another hour organizing her notes. The evidence was compelling. Financial records, witness accounts, documented patterns of abuse. Enough to justify a state investigation. Enough to expose the entire network. But Cooper's warning echoed in her mind. Once she took this to state authorities, the retaliation would be immediate and fierce. The fellowship would fight to protect themselves, using every connection and dirty trick they'd perfected over years. Maya gathered her materials, left money for the coffee, and walked to her car. She had what she needed. The next step would change everything. Maya parked her unmarked car behind a small diner in Millbrook, 30 minutes from Riverbend. The location had been carefully chosen, far enough from local influence, but close enough to reach quickly. Through the window, she spotted State Investigator Sarah Patterson at a corner booth, exactly as described in their email exchange. The diner's bell chimed as Maya entered. A few truckers hunched over early lunches, paying no attention to her. Patterson stood as Maya approached, tall, sharp-featured, with the steady gaze of someone who'd spent years unraveling complex cases. "Captain Whitfield," Patterson said, extending her hand. "Thank you for meeting me." Maya settled into the booth, placing her briefcase beside her. A waitress appeared, but Maya waved her off, wanting no interruptions. "I appreciate your discretion," Maya said, keeping her voice low. "What I'm about to share requires careful handling." Patterson nodded, pulling out a notepad. "My office has heard rumors about Riverbend for years, but nothing concrete enough to act on." Maya opened her briefcase, removing a series of folders and a laptop. "That changes today." She started with Cooper's documentation, dates, incidents, names of officers involved in the fellowship. Patterson's eyebrows rose as she reviewed the patterns of property seizures and selective enforcement. "This is methodical," Patterson noted. "They've built quite a system." "That's just the foundation," Maya said, queuing up audio files on her laptop. "Listen to this." The recording of her arrest played clearly. Officers receiving specific instructions to target her. The calculated humiliation attempt, the casual racism in their comments. Patterson's jaw tightened as she listened. They didn't know they were being recorded? The dispatcher who captured this risks everything by coming forward. Maya played additional clips. Officers discussing altered evidence, coordinating harassment of business owners, planning selective enforcement in minority neighborhoods. "Here's the paper trail," Maya continued, spreading out documents. "Falsified reports, doctored personnel files, missing complaint forms. Notice the pattern. Any officer who pushes back gets targeted. Any citizen who complains faces immediate retaliation." Patterson studied financial records showing suspicious property transfers. These businesses, all sold under market value after repeated citations? to shell companies owned by officers' relatives or friends. Maya pointed to specific transactions. The fellowship creates problems, then profits from the solutions. They've built a small empire through intimidation and abuse of power. And the interim captain coordinates this? He's one of the leaders. But the network extends into city government, local courts, even some state offices. Maya hesitated. That's why I needed to verify you personally before meeting. Patterson nodded grimly. Smart precaution. We've seen similar corruption rings, but rarely this sophisticated in a town this size. She gestured to the evidence. How long have you been building this case? Since my first day. But others laid the groundwork. Cooper, the dispatcher, community members brave enough to document everything. Maya pulled out more files. Here's testimony from business owners who were targeted. Records of racial profiling in traffic stops and searches. Internal communications showing coordinated cover-ups. For 2 hours, they reviewed evidence. Patterson took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions or requesting specific documentation. Maya explained each connection, every pattern, the way the corruption had become normalized within department culture. This is compelling, Patterson said finally, more than enough to justify immediate action. She began organizing the files. I'll need copies of everything. Maya handed her a secured flash drive. It's all here, including backups of the original files. I've stored additional copies in multiple secure locations. Good thinking. Patterson tucked the drive away carefully. We'll move quickly, but quietly. Expect a full team within 2 weeks. We'll need to coordinate the timing, arrests, searches, securing evidence before it can be destroyed. Hope flickered in Maya's chest, but she kept her expression neutral. How do you want to proceed? Continue as normal. Don't give them any reason to suspect. I'll contact you through secure channels with updates. Patterson met her eyes. You've done excellent work here, Captain. This kind of corruption destroys communities. Ending it matters. They wrapped up the meeting efficiently, Patterson departing first while Maya waited 15 minutes before leaving. During the drive back to Riverbend, she allowed herself to feel cautiously optimistic. The evidence was solid. The state was engaged. Change felt possible. At the station, Maya maintained her professional demeanor. Officers still avoided eye contact. Grant and Dwyer still smirked when passing her office. The interim captain still watched her with barely concealed hostility. She spent the afternoon handling routine matters, giving no indication of the morning's meeting. When Officer Miller deliberately delayed filing an urgent report, Maya simply documented the incident and moved on. When someone left a crude drawing on her desk, she added it to her evidence file without reaction. That evening, Maya sent final documentation to her secure backup system, encrypted files stored on multiple servers outside the department's reach. She then began drafting preliminary reform plans, new oversight procedures, training requirements, community engagement initiatives, changes that would reshape the department once the corruption was exposed. In her temporary rental house, Maya reviewed her notes one last time before bed. Patterson's words echoed in her mind. We'll move quickly, but quietly. Finally, after weeks of gathering evidence and enduring harassment, real action was coming. The fellowship would face justice. Their victims would see accountability. Maya set her alarm, checked her doors and windows, and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would be another day of pretending nothing had changed, of playing her role while the state built its case. She felt more confident than she had since arriving in Riverbend. The evidence was overwhelming. The right people were involved. Justice finally seemed within reach. Maya's headlights cut through the pre-dawn darkness as she pulled into the empty police station parking lot. The building loomed silent, its windows dark except for security lighting. She always arrived early, using the quiet hours to work without interruption. But today, Something felt wrong. Her footsteps echoed in the vacant hallway as she approached her office. From a distance, she noticed it. Her door wasn't fully closed. She distinctly remembered locking it last night, double-checking the handle as always. Now it stood slightly ajar, a thin slice of darkness visible through the gap. Maya's hand instinctively moved toward her weapon as she approached. She pushed the door open slowly, flicking on the lights. The sight stopped her cold. Her filing cabinet stood open, emptied. The carefully organized evidence binders, containing weeks of documented corruption, were gone. Every drawer had been methodically cleaned out. She rushed to her computer, hitting the power button. The screen flickered to life, but her files were missing. The entire system had been wiped clean. "No, no, no," she whispered, checking every folder, every possible location. Nothing remained. Even her cloud access had been locked out. A commotion in the hallway drew her attention. Through her office window, she saw 2 officers escorting Tasha Reed, the whistleblower dispatcher, toward the exit. Tasha's face was tear-stained. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. Maya hurried into the hallway. "What's going on here?" "Stay back, Captain," one officer warned. "This doesn't concern you. She's my dispatcher." "Everything here concerns me." Tasha looked up, her voice trembling. "They're firing me, claiming I violated dispatch protocols. They showed up at my house this morning with termination papers. Under whose authority?" "The interim captain and police union filed the complaint," the second officer said smugly. "Seems she's been mishandling sensitive information." Maya watched helplessly as they led Tasha away. Other officers began arriving for the morning shift, pointedly ignoring the scene. Some wore slight smiles, as if enjoying a private joke. Her phone buzzed, a text from the mayor's office demanding her immediate presence. Maya's stomach tightened as she walked the 3 blocks to City Hall, her mind racing. This was coordinated, planned. They hadn't just stolen her evidence. They were dismantling her support system. The mayor's secretary ushered her straight in. Mayor Wilson sat behind his desk, flanked by the interim captain and a police union representative. Their faces held no warmth. "Captain Whitfield," Wilson began, his tone formal, "we've received multiple anonymous complaints about your conduct, serious allegations of authority abuse, harassment of officers, and misuse of department resources." "That's ridiculous," Maya said. "I've documented every—" "We've seen no documentation," the union rep interrupted. "In fact, we've discovered you've been deleting files and intimidating staff to build false cases against respected officers." The interim captain nodded gravely. "Several witnesses have come forward, deeply concerned about your behavior." Maya fought to keep her voice steady. "This is retaliation. You're protecting corrupt officers who—" "That's enough," Wilson cut in. "Given the severity of these allegations, you're suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Badge and weapon, please. You can't do this." "We can, and we are." The union rep smiled coldly. "The department needs stability, not witch hunts." Maya's hands shook slightly as she surrendered her badge and gun. The mayor wouldn't meet her eyes as she was escorted out. In the hallway, she heard their muffled laughter. Her phone buzzed again. A news alert. The Riverbend Chronicle had already published an article. "New police captain under investigation. Sources claim pattern of misconduct." The story painted her as unstable, power-hungry, determined to destroy department morale. Anonymous officers described her as paranoid and vindictive. The police union officially condemned her actions, calling for her permanent removal. Maya walked numbly to her car, her world crumbling around her. Through the station windows, she could see Grant and Dwyer in the break room, sharing high-fives and celebratory coffee. Other officers joined them, all wearing expressions of satisfaction. They had won. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Weeks of careful investigation, gone. Her witness, fired. Her authority, stripped away. They had orchestrated her downfall perfectly, turning her own department's power against her. Tears threatened, but she fought them back. In the station, Grant raised his coffee mug in a mocking toast when he spotted her. Dwyer pointed and laughed, drawing more officers to the window. Their faces showed pure triumph. The outsider who dared challenge them had been crushed. Maya's chest felt tight, each breath a struggle. The magnitude of their victory, of her defeat, pressed down like a physical weight. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd hoped to change, had been erased in a single morning. Through the windshield, she watched the corrupt officers celebrating their victory. They moved with complete confidence, secure in their power, certain she had been neutralized. The system she'd tried to reform had instead reformed around her, squeezing her out like an unwelcome intruder. The sun climbed higher, but Maya sat motionless, watching her dreams of justice crumble. Inside the station, the celebration continued. Grant and Dwyer's laughter echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of how thoroughly they had outmaneuvered her. She had tried to bring light to their darkness, and they had extinguished it completely. Maya sat in her parked car, outside a small coffee shop, hours after her suspension. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. The text message made her pulse quicken. "Everything's safe. Judge Alden has it all. 1424 Oak Street. Come now. Tasha." She remembered Judge Harold Alden, a respected figure who'd served on the bench for over 3 decades before retiring last year. Her hands stopped shaking as she started her car. Maybe all wasn't lost. The judge's Victorian home sat back from the street, partially hidden by old maple trees. Maya checked her surroundings before walking up the curved path to the front door. Before she could knock, it opened. "Captain Whitfield," Judge Alden said quietly. "Please, come in." His tall frame stepped aside, revealing Tasha Reed waiting in the foyer. "I'm so sorry about this morning," Tasha said, her eyes still red from crying. "But I knew they might try something, so I made copies of everything weeks ago." The judge led them to his home office, where multiple boxes of documents covered his desk. "Ms. Reed brought these to me for safekeeping," he explained. "I've been documenting police misconduct in this town for years, waiting for someone with the courage to take action." Maya's hands trembled as she opened the first box. There were her missing files, every report, every piece of evidence she'd collected. But there was more. So much more. "I've kept detailed records since I was on the bench," Judge Alden said, pulling out additional folders. "Patterns of selective enforcement, suspicious property seizures, racial profiling statistics. Cases where evidence mysteriously vanished, or witnesses suddenly changed their stories." Tasha spoke up. "I added dispatch logs showing how certain officers delay response times in minority neighborhoods, and recordings of them coordinating bogus arrests." Maya spread the documents across the judge's massive oak desk. "This is incredible. But after this morning—" "They think they've won," the judge interrupted. "That's their weakness. Arrogance makes people sloppy." He opened his laptop. "Everything here is digitized, time-stamped, and backed up to secure servers. They can't make this disappear. And I saved every internal communication about your arrest at the bank," Tasha added, "including messages from the interim captain ordering Grant and Dwyer to handle you before you could take command." Maya's professional mask cracked slightly. "I thought, when they took everything this morning—" "That's exactly what they wanted," Judge Alden said firmly. "To break your spirit, make you feel powerless." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "But you're not alone, Captain. This town needs change." We've waited years for someone strong enough to make it happen. They spent hours organizing the evidence into clear categories: financial misconduct, civil rights violations, witness intimidation, falsified reports. The judge provided context from his time on the bench, connecting cases that revealed deeper patterns of corruption. "Look at this," Tasha said, pointing to a dispatch log. Every time Grant and Dwyer conducted a vehicle search that resulted in asset forfeiture, they used the same probable cause language. Word for word. That's statistically impossible. And here, the judge added, showing property records, officers investing in foreclosed homes that, coincidentally, belonged to people they arrested. The same names keep appearing through shell companies. Maya studied a timeline they'd created. The corruption got worse after each attempt to expose it. They learned they could act with impunity. "Until now," Judge Alden said. He pulled out his phone. "I just heard back from the state investigator. He's ready to move whenever we are." Maya's spine straightened. "How soon?" "He can arrange an emergency public briefing tomorrow morning. Full media presence." The judge smiled slightly. "Unless you need more time?" "No," Maya said firmly. "They think I'm finished. Let them keep thinking that until it's too late." Tasha began copying files onto encrypted drives while the judge made calls to trusted media contacts. Maya reviewed each piece of evidence, mentally preparing her presentation. The weight of defeat from that morning lifted with each damning document. "The interim captain's signature," she noted, holding up a falsified report. "Right next to Grant's. They're not even trying to hide their connection anymore." "Arrogance," the judge repeated. "They've gotten away with this for so long. They've stopped covering their tracks carefully." Hours passed as they assembled their case. The judge ordered dinner, and they ate between reviewing documents. Outside, the sun set behind the maple trees, casting long shadows through the office windows. "I should head home," Tasha said eventually. "My mom's worried after what happened this morning." The judge nodded. "I'll have my security service drive you. Captain, would you like to keep working here? It's safer than taking these files elsewhere." "Yes," Maya said. "I need to review everything one more time." She hugged Tasha. "Thank you for everything." After Tasha left, Maya settled into the judge's leather armchair, surrounding herself with key evidence. Each document represented another crack in the corrupt foundation she would soon shatter. She checked her phone. No missed calls from the mayor or union. They assumed she was home, broken, and defeated. The thought almost made her smile. "Coffee?" Judge Alden appeared with 2 steaming mugs. "Thank you." She accepted one gratefully. "For all of this, I was ready to give up this morning." "That's exactly why you'll win," he said, sitting across from her. "Because you felt that defeat. But you're still here, still fighting." Maya nodded, turning back to the files spread before her. In the warm lamplight of the judge's office, she methodically reviewed each piece of evidence again, ensuring everything was in perfect order for tomorrow. The corrupt officer's celebratory laughter from that morning no longer echoed in her mind. Instead, she felt a steady calm as she prepared to reclaim justice, one damning document at a time. Maya stood in the shadows backstage at the state capitol's press hall, her heart pounding beneath her crisp uniform. Judge Alden squeezed her shoulder reassuringly as they watched reporters file into the room. Through a gap in the curtain, she spotted network cameras being set up. 2 minutes, a staff member whispered. The State Attorney General, Richard Martinez, adjusted his tie beside her. "Everything's in place," he said quietly. "Officers are positioned at the station, waiting for my signal." Maya nodded, double-checking the presentation remote in her hand. The evidence files were loaded, each devastating revelation timed perfectly. She thought of Grant and Dwyer's smug faces yesterday, their certainty that they'd won. The interim captain's satisfied smirk, as she'd been escorted out. "They have no idea," Judge Alden murmured, reading her thoughts. The press hall lights dimmed. Maya took a deep breath as the Attorney General stepped out to approach the podium. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. "Good morning," Martinez began. "We're here to address serious allegations of systemic corruption within the Riverbend Police Department." Maya straightened her shoulders, waiting for her cue. "I'd like to introduce Captain Maya Whitfield, whose recent appointment uncovered disturbing evidence of misconduct, witness intimidation, and racial targeting." She strode onto the stage, her boots clicking against the hardwood. Flashbulbs exploded as reporters recognized her from the previous day's hostile newspaper coverage. The huge screens behind her flickered to life. "3 days ago," Maya said into the microphone, her voice steady, "I was wrongfully arrested while attempting to deposit my first paycheck as Riverbend's new police captain." The first recording played. Radio chatter between Grant, Dwyer, and the interim captain, planning her arrest. Their voices filled the hall. "Make sure she understands she's not welcome here. Handle it before she takes command. Teach her what happens to outsiders who don't know their place." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya clicked to the next slide, personnel files showing years of deleted complaints against both officers. "This arrest was not a misunderstanding," she continued. "It was a coordinated attempt to maintain a corrupt power structure that has terrorized Riverbend's citizens for years." More evidence appeared on screen. Property seizure records, falsified reports, racial profiling statistics. The Attorney General stepped forward. "Our investigation has revealed a criminal enterprise operating within the department," he said. "Officers targeting minority residents, stealing seized assets, and intimidating anyone who complained." Maya brought up dispatch logs showing delayed response times in minority neighborhoods, alongside internal messages coordinating harassment of business owners who spoke out. "When I began investigating," she said, "these officers believed they could simply destroy evidence and suspend me to maintain their control." The screens showed security footage of her office being raided the previous morning. Then split-screen images appeared. The lost files alongside their secured copies, proving deliberate destruction of evidence. Reporters shouted questions. "Captain Whitfield, were you specifically targeted? How long has this been happening? Who authorized the cover-up?" The Attorney General raised his hands. "We are prepared to take action. Based on overwhelming evidence, I am issuing immediate arrest warrants for Officer James Grant, Officer Michael Dwyer, and Interim Captain Thomas Ross on multiple felony charges." Maya clicked again. Their department photos appeared on screen alongside lists of charges: conspiracy, evidence tampering, civil rights violations, witness intimidation. "Additionally," Martinez continued, "we have officers waiting at Riverbend Police Station to execute these warrants." We will now switch to live footage. The screens changed to a multi-camera view outside the station. Grant and Dwyer stood near the entrance, watching their phones as news alerts presumably reached them. The interim captain emerged from the building, his face darkening as he read something on his screen. State police vehicles pulled up, lights flashing. The three men's expressions shifted from confusion to rage as officers approached with handcuffs. In the press hall, Maya watched silently as Grant tried to back away, shouting about a setup. Dwyer's usual cold calculation crumbled as his hands were cuffed behind his back. The interim captain attempted to pull rank, but his protests died as he was read his rights. Cameras followed them being led to separate vehicles. Grant spotted one and snarled directly into the lens, his mask of authority completely gone. The interim captain kept his head down, shoulders slumped in defeat. Dwyer alone remained stone-faced, but his eyes blazed with impotent fury as he was placed in a car. "Captain Whitfield," a reporter called out, How do you respond to yesterday's allegations that you were abusing your authority? Maya stepped back to the microphone. I respond with evidence, not accusations. The truth speaks for itself. What changes will you implement at the department? Another asked. Complete transparency, she said firmly. New oversight procedures, required bias training, and, most importantly, real consequences for any officer who betrays the public trust. The Attorney General outlined next steps: a full state audit, civilian review board, mandatory reporting systems. Maya stood straight beside him, her posture unwavering as she watched the patrol cars carrying her former tormentors pull away from the station. On screen, other officers gathered at the station entrance, their expressions a mix of shock and apprehension. Some looked relieved, others worried. They all knew change was coming. This is only the beginning, Maya said into the microphone. Riverbend deserves better, and they're finally going to get it. The press conference continued, with reporters pressing for details about specific cases and reform plans. But Maya kept returning to those final shots of Grant, Dwyer, and the interim captain in handcuffs. The same restraints they'd used to humiliate her just days ago. Justice had come full circle. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the station windows as Maya's unmarked vehicle pulled into the parking lot. 2 state police cruisers flanked her, lights silently flashing. She straightened her badge, remembering how just hours ago she'd watched her tormentors being led away in handcuffs. State agents in tactical gear held the doors as she entered. The usually bustling station fell silent. Officers who had smirked at her suspension yesterday now scattered like roaches exposed to light, ducking into side rooms or suddenly finding paperwork fascinating. "Captain on deck," announced Agent Roberts, the lead investigator. His voice echoed through the halls. A few officers snapped to attention out of habit, then looked uncertain whether they should maintain the pose. Maya strode past the booking desk where she'd been fingerprinted just days ago. Her boots clicked against the tiles, each step deliberate and measured. She noticed Officer Peterson, who had always conveniently lost her paperwork, trying to slip away. "Peterson," she called out, "please stay right there. The state agents have some questions about those missing domestic violence reports." He froze, face draining of color as 2 agents approached him. Down the main corridor, more state police were already at work. They moved methodically through offices, securing computers and files. Through open doors, Maya glimpsed officers being interviewed, their expressions ranging from defensive to fearful to relieved. "Captain Whitfield," a young officer hurried up, looking nervous but determined. I want you to know some of us are glad this is happening. We tried reporting things before, but—" "I know, Collins," Maya said quietly. "Write down everything you remember, every incident, every cover-up. Agent Roberts will take your statement." She continued her walk through the station, noting how different it felt without Grant and Dwyer's looming presence. In the evidence room, investigators were photographing stacks of files pulled from a hidden panel behind a filing cabinet. Burned paper fragments littered a trash can. Someone had tried destroying records before the raids. "Look at this," an agent called out, holding up a ledger. Off-the-book seizure records going back 3 years. Maya examined the book, recognizing addresses in predominantly black neighborhoods. Properties taken on dubious grounds, their owners intimidated into silence. She handed it to an evidence technician for processing. The dispatch office, usually a hub of activity, was eerily quiet. Empty desks showed where implicated dispatchers had been removed. The remaining staff worked under supervision, carefully logging every call and response time. "Captain!" a familiar voice rang out. Maya turned to see Lena Higgins striding toward her, followed by several community members. The activist's face shone with vindication. "We saw the press conference," Lena said, gripping Maya's hand. "The whole town's talking about it. People are coming forward," sharing stories they've been afraid to tell for years. Maya gestured them into a conference room, away from the ongoing searches. We'll need those stories documented. Every complaint, every incident. Already on it, Lena assured her. We're setting up at the community center. People feel safe there. She paused, emotion crossing her face. You did what we thought was impossible. You proved they weren't untouchable. Through the windows, Maya could see crowds gathering outside the station. Not angry protesters this time, but citizens coming to witness the change. Some held signs, "Thank you, Captain Whitfield," and "Justice comes to Riverbend." A commotion down the hall drew her attention. State agents emerged from the interim captain's office, carrying boxes of shredded documents and hard drives. "Hidden compartment in the floor," one reported. "Looks like financial records, maybe blackmail material." They really thought they were bulletproof. Maya walked to the office doorway, remembering how the interim captain had smiled while suspending her. Now his decorations were gone, his desk stripped bare. A portrait of him with Grant and Dwyer lay face down in an evidence box. More officers were being escorted out for questioning, including several who had joined the mockery during her arrest. They avoided her gaze as they passed. The state agents had found text messages coordinating the bank incident. They'd all known who she was before arriving. "Captain," called Agent Roberts. "We found something interesting in Dwyer's desk." He held up a folder containing surveillance photos of Maya jogging the morning of her arrest. They had planned every detail, thinking their power would protect them forever. She moved through the building methodically, watching justice unfold in real time. Forensic teams searched computers. Internal affairs investigators conducted interviews. The thin blue line that had protected corruption for so long was being erased. In the break room, she found younger officers huddled together, looking shell-shocked. Some had clearly been coerced into silence by the old guard. Others had simply never known anything different. "This department belongs to the community now," she told them. "Anyone who wants to be part of that change is welcome to stay. Anyone who doesn't, the door is there." Maya paused in the main hallway, where just yesterday Grant and Dwyer had strutted like kings. Their presence had dominated this space for so long, suffocating anyone who dared challenge them. Now the air felt lighter, cleaner. She drew a deep breath, finally able to fill her lungs without the weight of their oppression. The halls that had witnessed her humiliation would now see her lead. Through the front doors, she could still see citizens gathering, their faces hopeful. Change had come to Riverbend at last. Morning light streamed through City Hall's windows as Maya approached the main conference room. Inside, a mix of faces turned to greet her. The mayor, looking appropriately chastened, state law enforcement officials, and community leaders who had long fought for change. "Captain Whitfield," the Attorney General's representative began, "please join us." He gestured to the head of the table, a seat that would have been denied to her just days ago. Maya took her place, noting how different the energy felt from her previous encounters in this building. Gone were the dismissive glances and patronizing tones. Even the mayor's usual political swagger had been replaced by an air of deference. "First order of business," announced the state official, sliding a document across the table. "Your full reinstatement, effective immediately, with expanded authority to implement departmental reforms." He paused, making eye contact with everyone present. "The governor's office is particularly interested in making Riverbend a model for police accountability." Maya reviewed the paperwork as Lena Higgins, seated to her right, spoke up. "The Community Oversight Board is ready to assist with the transition. We've already received dozens of testimonies from residents willing to share their experiences." "Good," Maya responded, signing the reinstatement forms. "Those voices need to be heard. Every complaint that was buried, every case that was dismissed, we're reopening all of it." The mayor shifted uncomfortably. "Captain, about the union contract has been superseded by state emergency measures, the official interrupted. The corruption exposed here justifies extraordinary oversight. Captain Whitfield will have full authority to restructure the department as needed. Maya outlined her immediate priorities. We'll start with a complete audit of all personnel files. The real ones, not the sanitized versions. Every officer will undergo psychological evaluation and implicit bias testing. Those who pass will receive mandatory retraining on de-escalation and community policing. She turned to the state investigators. I want a task force dedicated to reviewing every property seizure, every suspicious arrest, every incident where excessive force was reported. If we find victims of misconduct, they deserve restitution. The meeting continued as Maya detailed her plans. New oversight policies would require body cameras to be active during all citizen interactions. Community complaints would go directly to an independent review board. Regular town halls would be scheduled to rebuild trust. What about officers who weren't directly implicated but stayed silent? Asked a community leader. They'll have one chance, Maya stated firmly. Come forward now with what they know, cooperate fully with investigations, and demonstrate genuine commitment to change. Otherwise, they can find work elsewhere. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with messages from officers who had once avoided her. Now they wanted private meetings, claiming they had valuable information to share. Maya noted their names without responding. Their sudden cooperation would be evaluated based on actions, not convenient promises. The mayor attempted to steer the conversation toward maintaining stability, but Maya cut him off. Stability is what allowed corruption to flourish. We're not maintaining anything. We're rebuilding from the ground up. Lena presented a thick folder of community testimonies. These are just from the last 24 hours. People feel safe coming forward now that Grant and Dwyer are gone. Maya reviewed the statements, stories of intimidation, racist targeting, evidence tampering, and retribution against anyone who complained. Each account reinforced the necessity of complete reform. We'll need additional resources, she noted, turning to the state officials. Training personnel, forensic accountants, community liaison officers. Already approved, the representative confirmed. The governor wants this handled properly. You'll have whatever support you need. The meeting shifted to logistics. A state police detail would provide temporary coverage, while Maya evaluated her remaining officers. Criminal justice experts would assist in developing new protocols. Social workers would be embedded with patrol units. As the group broke for lunch, Maya noticed former critics now lingering to speak with her. The same business leaders who had questioned her authority were suddenly eager to offer support. She acknowledged them professionally, but made no promises. Quite a change in attitude, Lena observed quietly. Amazing what happens when consequences finally arrive, Maya replied. They discussed plans for the afternoon, meetings with individual officers, establishing the new complaint system, coordinating with state investigators. The work ahead was enormous, but for the first time, the path was clear. After the sessions concluded, Maya walked to her office. Officers who had once blocked her path now stepped aside, offering tentative greetings. Some looked genuinely relieved at the changes. Others clearly calculated their best chances for survival. She reached the office door, the same one she'd found broken into during the attempt to destroy her evidence. Now, a new nameplate gleamed. Captain Maya Whitfield, Department Commander. The lock clicked open smoothly. Inside, state technicians had swept for surveillance devices and secured her computer systems. The desk had been cleared of the interim captain's belongings. Sunlight filled the space that had once felt so hostile. Maya removed her badge, studying the shield that represented both oppression and hope in Riverbend. The same symbol that Grant and Dwyer had abused would now stand for accountability. She placed it deliberately on the desk. not as a trophy, but as a promise to the community. Through her window, she could see the station's front entrance where she'd been dragged in handcuffs just days ago. Now, state agents efficiently processed years of hidden files while citizens arrived to share their stories. The department's transformation had begun. A knock at her door revealed a young officer, one who had quietly helped her gather evidence. "Captain, several of us were wondering, when do we start the new training?" Maya smiled. "Right now. Have your shift gather in the main conference room. It's time to learn what real police work looks like." The evening sun cast long shadows across City Hall's steps as residents filed into the main assembly room. Every seat was taken, with people standing along the walls and spilling into the hallway. The air hummed with anticipation. This wasn't just another town meeting. This was the start of something new. Maya stood backstage, adjusting her uniform. The same uniform that had once made her a target now represented hope for real change. Through the curtain, she could hear the familiar voices of her strongest supporters. Judge Alden discussing legal precedents with other community leaders, Tasha Reed sharing her whistleblower experience with interested citizens, and Lena Higgins organizing last-minute details with her advocacy group. The mayor approached the podium, his usual political swagger notably subdued. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your police captain, Maya Whitfield." As Maya stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. Not polite, formal applause, but the kind that comes from genuine appreciation and relief. Some people stood, others cheered. She saw elderly residents who had endured decades of mistreatment wiping away tears. Young parents held their children up to see the woman who had transformed their police department. Maya raised her hand, waiting for the room to settle. In the front row, Judge Alden nodded encouragingly. Beside him, Tasha Reed, now reinstated with a promotion, sat tall and proud, no longer shrinking from attention. Lena beamed, surrounded by community members who had fought alongside her for years. "Good evening," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed room. "6 weeks ago, I was handcuffed and dragged out of Riverbend Community Bank." She paused as murmurs of anger rippled through the crowd. "Today, those responsible are facing federal charges, and this department belongs to the people it's meant to serve." She gestured to a large screen behind her, displaying the new departmental policies. Transparency isn't just a buzzword anymore. Every officer now wears a body camera that cannot be disabled. All citizen complaints go directly to an independent review board. Traffic stops, searches, and arrests are monitored for racial bias. Property seizures require detailed documentation and judicial review. Maya clicked to the next slide, showing training statistics. Every remaining officer has completed intensive retraining in de-escalation, cultural sensitivity, and proper use of force. Those who refused or failed these requirements are no longer with the department. We've hired new officers who reflect our community's diversity and values. In the audience, people nodded approvingly. Some took notes, others recorded the presentation. The fear that had once kept residents silent was gone, replaced by engaged participation. But perhaps most importantly, Maya continued, we've created multiple channels for community oversight. The Citizen Review Committee, led by Ms. Higgins, meets weekly to evaluate our progress. Judge Alden heads our new Legal Compliance Division. And Ms. Reed has developed a secure system for reporting officer misconduct that cannot be tampered with or buried. She clicked through slides showing the dramatic changes. Complaint resolution rates up 300%, use of force incidents down 70%, community satisfaction surveys showing unprecedented improvement. Each statistic represented real lives impacted, real trust being rebuilt. Across town right now, Maya noted, former officers Grant and Dwyer, along with the interim captain, are in cells awaiting their arraignment tomorrow morning. She didn't need to elaborate. Everyone knew the charges: civil rights violations, evidence tampering, conspiracy, abuse of power. Their trial will be public, transparent, and based on irrefutable evidence. Justice doesn't wear a badge. It serves the truth. The meeting shifted to community input. Residents who had once feared speaking up now approached the microphone confidently. They shared positive interactions with newly trained officers, reported quick responses to complaints, and expressed relief at seeing police truly serving their neighborhoods. An elderly black woman stood slowly, supported by her grandson. "I've lived here 63 years, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "First time in my life I'm not scared when I see a police car on my street. First time I feel like I can call for help and actually get it." Maya listened intently to every speaker, taking notes, addressing concerns directly. When someone raised issues about specific interactions or procedures, she provided clear explanations and solutions. Nothing was dismissed or minimized. Lena presented updates from community working groups, civilian patrols coordinating with police, youth outreach programs, immigrant assistance services. Judge Alden detailed the new oversight mechanisms ensuring accountability. Tasha explained how dispatcher protocols had been reformed to eliminate bias in response times. As the formal presentation concluded, Maya opened the floor for direct questions. She handled each one with the same measured confidence that had helped her survive those first hostile weeks. Whether addressing budget concerns, staffing decisions, or specific incidents, her responses demonstrated both authority and accessibility. "Final thoughts?" the moderator asked as the meeting drew to a close. Maya stood at the podium one last time. 6 weeks ago, corrupt officers tried to humiliate and silence me. They believed their power was absolute, their positions untouchable. They were wrong. She paused, making eye contact with various community members. But this isn't about revenge or even vindication. It's about building something that should have existed all along, a police department that truly protects and serves everyone equally. The applause was even louder than when she'd entered. People rose to their feet, many calling out thanks and encouragement. Maya saw faces that had once turned away from her, now beaming with pride and hope. She stepped down from the stage, taking time to shake hands and speak personally with residents. The crowd gradually thinned, but the energy remained positive, optimistic. This wasn't just a successful meeting. It was a community reclaiming its power and dignity. The cool evening air felt refreshing as Maya finally walked out of City Hall. Stars were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Behind her, she could hear people still discussing the meeting's highlights. A woman waiting for her ride turned to her friend and said clearly, "She's the captain this town always needed." If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.